legendary music producer Quincy Jones broke some unexpected news, claiming Godfather actor Marlon Brando had a relationship with comedian Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor, the legendary comic known for his raw honesty and boundary-pushing humor, left behind more than just a legacy of laughs. He left secrets. In a world where being openly gay was a career risk, Pryor's private life remained under wraps. But behind closed doors, he allegedly named several famous men he shared intimate connections with. These secret confessions, once buried, are now bubbling to the surface, adding a surprising new layer to the icon's already complex life. Who were these celebrities? And why did Pryor keep their names hidden? The truth might just shock Hollywood all over again. Richard Pryor's chaotic love life. An unexpected posthumous chapter was added to the record of Richard Pryor's notoriously tumultuous love life when Quincy Jones, and subsequently his ex-wife Jennifer Lee, claimed that the late comedian had affairs with men, including Marlon Brando. This was a chapter that was added to the legacy of Richard Pryor's love life. Pryor had a complicated relationship with sex and intimacy, which were topics that the comedian frequently addressed in his honest and deeply personal stand-up routines. Rain, his daughter, has since denied the allegation, calling her stepmother a bottom feeder for supporting Jones's claims. However, there is no denying that Pryor had a complicated relationship with these topics. The comedian was brought up in one of 3 prostitution houses that were controlled by his authoritarian grandmother. He was surrounded by sexual activity from the day he was born, almost immediately after his birth. As he stated in an interview with The New Yorker in 1999 that it was not an ideal childhood. His mother was a prostitute who worked in one of the houses, and when the nuns at his Catholic grammar school found out about the nature of the family business, he was kicked out of school.
I remember I was good until the Catholic school when they kicked me out because my mother's had a house of ill repute.
Pryor was subjected to sexual molestation at the age of 6 under the care of a young guy who lived in the area. While the man was working on a movie set, he brought his son to his trailer and asked for his autograph. This occurred after he had achieved fame. Even though he occasionally disregarded the harm that was created by the traumatic experiences he had as a child, his subsequent relationships were frequently unstable and did not last very long. After his first marriage to Patricia Price, which lasted from 1960 to 1961, he went on to have 3 serious relationships between the years 1969 and 1978. These partnerships included 2 marriages that lasted for 2 years, each to Shelley Bonus and Deborah McGuire. During that time period, he already had 2 children, Renee, who was the daughter of his girlfriend Susan when Pryor was 7 years old, and Richard, who was his son with Price. In addition, he had affairs with a number of famous actors and actresses, including Pam Grier and Margot Kidder, as well as one with a drag queen who, according to him, resembled Josephine Baker. Within the pages of his autobiography, he detailed the affair. It was reported by The New Yorker that Pryor was repeatedly in trouble for beating up women. Throughout his life, Pryor also struggled with substance abuse and alcoholism. According to some sources, before the year 1968, he was snorting hundreds of dollars worth of cocaine every day, had been arrested for assault and battery, had been sued for wife-beating, and was accused of stabbing a landlord with a fork and of punching a hotel clerk. All of these things occurred before he experienced a career collapse. In addition to his substance abuse and alcoholism, his breakups and outbursts were frequently associated with his own feelings of insecurity throughout his life. For instance, his relationship with Grier terminated after, among other offenses, she beat him twice in tennis. Proposition 6 was a Californian anti-gay measure, and in September of 1977, he was invited to speak at a benefit held at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. The purpose of the event was to fight the proposition. His description of the first time he had oral sex with a male audience member elicited a great deal of laughter from the audience members throughout his performance. However, the audience gradually turned against him as a result of his continuous use of homophobic slurs, and Pryor eventually left the stage after encouraging the audience to kiss his happy, rich black ass. It was in the same year, not long after he had married McGuire, that he expelled his newlyweds' friends from his home after a tense New Year's celebration. This was one of the most bizarre events that he had ever experienced. After firing a number of shots into one of McGuire's buddies' empty automobiles, which was still sitting in his driveway, Pryor was arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon. McGuire's friend was the victim of the incident. The blow-up ultimately resulted in the divorce of Pryor and McGuire, despite the fact that they continued to feel love for one another. According to Pryor, after the breakup, he stated that, for a considerable amount of time, he regarded women as sexual objects, and he was constantly attempting to avoid being wounded. On that particular day, they would gather their belongings and depart, taking with them something more than just their clothing. Since this time, they would take his happiness with them. After his divorce from McGuire, Pryor told people that his children were the most important thing in his life. This is despite the fact that he never had close relationships with any of his children from the beginning. His daughter Renee, then 20, resided with him. Richard, then 15, lived back in Peoria, Illinois with his mother, while Elizabeth, then 10, and Rain, then 8, both lived in LA with their respective moms. Another marriage, another chaos. They had first met in 1977, when she was recruited to assist him in redecorating his home. In 1981, he married his next wife, Jennifer Lee. She traveled to Los Angeles when she was in her early 20s with the intention of pursuing a career as an actress. She appeared in a number of low-budget films and has since asserted that she had affairs with Warren Beatty and Roman Polanski. Pryor reportedly recognized a portion of himself in Lee, as stated by the official media. They saw themselves in him, in his inability to fit in the solitude of it all, and in his desire to be vulnerable in the same way that women are. This is something that no one understands.
I had a tremendous, not only still loved him, but had a profound sense of loyalty.
But it was one of the reasons that Richard became so popular. Of course, women are also disenfranchised in this regard. Despite this, the two continued to engage in many fights, and Pryor's violent techniques persisted. According to what he shared with The New Yorker, he claimed that Jennifer couldn't keep up with his pace. However, their marriage was only for a year, and by 1982, they had already started the divorce process. He achieved sobriety in 1983 and started performing less frequently after that. He then remarried Flynn B. Lane in 1986, 2 years after she had given birth to his son Stephen. This marriage took place in 1986. After receiving a diagnosis of progressive multiple sclerosis in 1994, he approached Lee for assistance. The divorce took place in 1991. Bisexuality allegations. In 2014, the biographical book, Becoming Richard Pryor, written by Scott Saul, stated that Pryor acknowledged his bisexuality. In 2018, Quincy Jones and Pryor's widow Jennifer Lee stated that Pryor had a sexual relationship with actor Marlon Brando, and that Pryor was open with his friends about his bisexuality and the fact that he slept with men. Both of these statements were made 9 years after Pryor's death. After some time had passed, Rain Pryor, Pryor's daughter, refuted the story, and Lee responded by stating that Rain was in denial about her father's bisexuality. After some time had passed, Lee stated in an interview with the Hollywood entertainment television series TMZ that was the 70s. Still, drugs were an excellent option. Should you consume an adequate amount of cocaine, you would rape a radiator and send it flowers in the morning. The connection that Pryor had with Mitrasha, a transgender woman, lasted for 2 weeks, and he referred to it as 2 weeks of being gay in his autobiography, which was titled Pryor Convictions. In the first special that Pryor ever produced, titled Live and Smokin', he talks about performing fellatio. Additionally, he disclosed in the special, as well as in 1977 at a homosexual rights event held at the Hollywood Bowl, that he admitted to engaging in sexual relations with a male individual. His first breakthrough. After relocating to New York City in 1963, Pryor began his career as a performer by beginning to appear in clubs on a regular basis alongside other artists such as Bob Dylan and Woody Allen. one of his first nights was spent at New York's Village Gate, where he served as the opening act for the singer and pianist Nina Simone. In 1970, Pryor obtained a contract with the independent record label Laugh Records, which specializes in humor. In 1971, he recorded his second album, which was titled Craps After Hours. In the documentary Wattstacks, which was released 2 years later, Pryor, who was still relatively unknown at the time, had an appearance. In the film, he riffed on the tragic comic absurdities of race relations in Watts and the United States. Not much longer after that, Pryor began looking for a contract with a major record label, and in 1973 he signed a contract with Stax Records. In the aftermath of the publication of his third breakout album, That Nigger's Crazy, Laugh, who asserted ownership of Pryor's recording rights, came dangerously close to obtaining an injunction that would prevent the album from being marketed. The release of Pryor from his contract with Laugh was the result of negotiations. In exchange for this concession, Laugh was granted the freedom to release material that had not been released any time before, which had been recorded between the years 1968 and 1973. That Nigger's Crazy was a financial and critical triumph. It was eventually certified gold by the RIAA and received the Grammy Award for Best Comedy Album at the 1975 Grammy Awards. The album was the recipient of the Platinum certification. Pryor served as a co-host at the Academy Awards on 2 separate occasions. The first time was in 1975, when she hosted the 49th Academy Awards alongside Warren Beatty, Ellen Burstyn, and Jane Fonda. The second time was in 1983, when she hosted the 55th Academy Awards alongside Liza Minnelli, Dudley Moore, and Walter Matthau. Due to his performance on the television show Chicago Hope, he was also considered for a nomination for a Primetime Emmy Award in the category of Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series. After a slip-up early in the program, a 5-second delay was implemented after returning from a commercial break. This was in response to the fact that network censors had informed Pryor about his use of profanity to be used during the Academy Awards. Sam Kinison in 1986 and Andrew Dice Clay in 1990 were the other 2 hosts of Saturday Night Live who were forced to a 5-second delay. Pryor is one of only 3 hosts to have been subjected to this delay. Pryor continues to make waves in the comedy industry. Pryor established his own production business, Indigo Productions, in 1983, at the same time as he signed a contract with Columbia Pictures for a period of 5 years and a total of $40 million. Following that, softer and more formulaic films were released, such as Superman 3, which brought in $4 million for Pryor, Brewster's Millions, Moving, and See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Others followed. The lone film effort from this time period that brought back memories of his difficult beginnings was JoJo Dancer, Your Life is Calling, which was Pryor's semi-autobiographical debut as a writer-director. Unfortunately, the picture did not achieve remarkable success. In addition, Pryor was given serious consideration for the part of Billy Ray Valentine on Trading Places. Nevertheless, Eddie Murphy ultimately emerged victorious in the competition. The children's show that Pryor presented for a short period of time on CBS was dubbed Pryor's Place. This was despite the fact that Pryor is notorious for spewing profanity both on and off camera. Pryor's Place featured a cast of puppets animated by Sid and Marty Krofft, hanging out and having fun in a nice inner-city milieu, along with numerous youngsters and characters performed by Pryor himself. This was similar to Sesame Street, where Pryor appeared in a few portions that were repeated multiple times. Ray Parker Jr. was the one who sang the theme song for the show. In comparison to Sesame Street, Pryor's Place frequently dealt with more serious and distressing topics. A short time after it had made its premiere, it was canceled. As a result of multiple sclerosis, Pryor spent his final years, beginning in the early to middle 1990s, utilizing a mobility scooter that was powered by an electric motor. More shit was the acronym that he frequently used to refer to MS. His most recent film performance was a brief part in David Lynch's Lost Highway, in which he played the role of Arnie, the manager of an auto repair garage. He appeared on the scooter with the character. All of Pryor's albums previously released on Reprise and WB were remixed by Rhino Records in order to include them in the box set. It's also quite profound. The full collection of recordings from Warner Brothers. In December 1999, Pryor featured in the cold open of an episode of The Norm Show entitled Norm vs. the Boxer. He played Mr. Johnson, an elderly guy in a wheelchair who has lost the rights to in-home nursing because he kept fighting the nurses before attacking Norm himself. The appearance he made on television was his final one. Pryor and Jennifer Lee Pryor, his wife and manager, were successful in acquiring the legal rights to all of the Laugh material in the year 2002. This material consisted of about 40 hours of reel-to-reel analog tape. Jennifer Lee Pryor granted Rhino Records access to the tapes in the year 2004, after she had gone through the tapes and received Richard's approval. This collection of cassettes, which includes the complete Craps After Hours album, serves as the foundation for the double CD version that was released on February 1, 2005. Health problems and addictions. According to a number of reports, including Pryor himself, on the evening of June 9, 1980, Pryor started a fire by pouring 151 proof rum all over himself and then setting himself on fire. An explosion that took place while he was freebasing cocaine is said to have been the cause of his burns that night, according to several sources, including the Los Angeles Police Department. Despite the fact that he was still on fire, he fled his residence in Los Angeles and ran along Parthenia Street until he was brought down by law enforcement. In order to receive treatment for the second and third degree burns that covered more than half of his body, he was transported to a hospital before being transferred there.
When he first arrived at the Sherman Oaks Hospital, officials gave him only 1 chance in 3 to survive.
Pryor was treated at the Grossman Burn Center at Sherman Oaks Hospital in Los Angeles for a period of 6 weeks until he was fully recovered. According to his daughter Rain, the incident occurred as a consequence of a temporary episode of psychosis brought on by the use of drugs. Jennifer Lee, Pryor's widow, remembered the time when her husband began freebasing cocaine. She said, "After 2 weeks of watching him get addicted to this stuff, I moved out. Evidently, the drug had made its way into his life, and it had become his lover as well as everything else. There was no such thing as me." At the age of 36, Pryor suffered a small heart attack in November of 1977. Prior to that, he had a history of excessive drinking and smoking for many years. In January of the following year, he was able to heal and restart his performance career. He was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1986, and by the middle of the 90s, he was relying on a mobility scooter for the majority of his daily activities. A second heart attack occurred to Pryor in the year 1990 while he was in Australia. In the year 1991, he underwent surgery to bypass his heart 3 times. As a consequence of his multiple sclerosis, his sister reported that he had lost his voice toward the end of the year 2004. On the other hand, Jennifer Lee, Pryor's wife, responded to this assertion in a post that she made on the official website affiliated with Pryor on January 9, 2005. The Thief Called Death. The comic Jerry Seinfeld referred to Pryor as the Picasso of our profession, while Bob Newhart referred to him as the seminal comedian of the last 50 years. Regarding Pryor, Dave Chappelle made the following statement: "You know those like evolution charts of man? It was he who was walking in an upright body. When it came to comedy, Richard was the pinnacle of development." A significant portion of this legacy can be credited to the extraordinary level of closeness that Pryor brought to bear on his comedic performances. According to a statement that was attributed to Bill Cosby, Richard Pryor drew the line between comedy and tragedy as thin as one could possibly paint it. Pryor suffered his third and greatest heart attack at his home in Los Angeles on the morning of December 10, 2005. This was his last heart attack. Following the unsuccessful attempts of his wife to resuscitate him, he was sent to a nearby hospital on the west side, where he was pronounced dead at 7:58 a.m. of Pacific Standard Time. The words of his widow Jennifer were reported to have been spoken. At the very end, there was a smile on his face. The cremation of his body was followed by the distribution of his ashes to his relatives. In the year 2019, His widow dispersed his ashes in the bay close to Hana, which is located in Hawaii. The forensic pathologist Michael Hunter is of the opinion that the fatal heart attack that occurred in Pryor was brought on by coronary artery disease, which was at least partially brought on by Pryor's lifelong habit of smoking tobacco. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Click on the next video popping up on your screen for more amazing content.